I just saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Was it any good? How many butter pumps will it get? Let's get into it.
My baby likes butter
I don't get it, butter babies. I just don't get it. Why is there so much hate for this movie? Why is it sitting at 48% on Rotten Tomatoes? Why did it get a low B cinema score? You know, I guess the internet trolls, when they smell blood in the water, they just go nuts. But still, in most cases, the trolling is completely unjustified, but in this case, it's just downright confusing. Butter babies, I liked this movie. I really did. I was nervous going into it because of that really low Rotten Tomatoes score and all of the internet hate I'd been hearing about, so I set my expectations accordingly. But by the end of the movie, I was like, that was good. Now, to be 100% fair and honest, this movie does have its problems, and we're going to get into all of them in just a moment. But looking back on the movie, I feel like it did what it needed to do to advance the Kang storyline. Phase 4, which was a jumbled and mixed up mess, did absolutely nothing to advance the overall narrative of the Kang story, which is the whole point of the multiverse saga. It was either wrapping up old storylines or introducing new characters. Phase 4 was literally there to introduce the new Avengers, either by retiring or sadly killing off the old ones. Rest in peace, King Chadwick Boseman. Or just introducing new characters out of whole cloth. Phase 4 could literally have been called Out with the Old, In with the New. Now, to be fair, in Phase 4 there were some chef kiss gems, and I enjoyed the hell out of them for what they were. Basically standalone stories that did nothing to move the overall story forward. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, was the first movie to kick off Phase 5, and finally, it feels like this whole multiverse saga has some forward momentum. So what's this movie about? Spoilers, by the way, from here on out. In a nutshell, because of an accident, the entire Ant-Man Wasp family gets sucked into the quantum realm. Scott Lang, his daughter Cassie, who by the way has been aged up to a full-grown adult, Hope Pym and her parents Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. The entire plot of the movie revolves around them trying to get home. Inside the quantum realm, we meet Kang the Conqueror, one of the legion of Kang variants in the multiverse. Now, this particular Kang was exiled to the quantum realm because apparently that was the only prison that could effectively hold him. So he did what any kind of conqueror would do. He turned his prison into his empire by basically taking over the entire quantum realm. But at the same time, he also wants to go home. So you've got the Ant-Man and Wasp family, specifically Janet Van Dyne, who hold the key to him going home. But if he gets out, it spells doom for everyone in the entire multiverse. So not only are they all trying to get home, the Ant-Man and Wasp family is also, along with a whole bunch of Quantum Realm rebels, fighting against Kang. Eventually the heroes win out, Kang is defeated, and the Ant-Man Wasp family gets to go home. But two mid and post-credit scenes show that it's not all tied up in a pretty little bow, and we'll talk about those two scenes in a moment. So let's talk about the good stuff in this movie first. The first we've already talked about, actually, and it's that this movie finally starts to see some forward momentum in regards to the multiverse saga storyline as a whole. But honestly and truthfully, this is a Michelle Pfeiffer movie. OMG. She is such a badass in this film, and damn it, man, she is such a great actress. No, her performance in Quantumania is an Oscar caliber. Angela Bassett for the win. She was robbed from the BAFTAs, hashtag BAFTAs so white, but still, Michelle gives it her all in this role, and I believed every second of it. She is incredible in this film, and it is literally her film. Hers and Jonathan Majors. Yes, Jonathan Majors as Kang. And you know, it's the cherry on top that Mr. Majors happens to be a phenomenal actor. He first came to my attention on Lovecraft Country. Yes, Lovecraft Country. Lovecraft Country. I can talk, I promise you. A show that, although scary, was just incredibly, incredibly good. And I have been hooked on Mr. Majors ever since. And he has all these variant Kangs to play, and that he does that and gives each Kang his own presence and depth is just amazing to me. If you haven't seen him in the first season of Loki, do yourself a favor and watch it. In fact, it will probably inform your viewing of this movie and the end credit scenes as well. He's absolutely amazing as the big bad in this movie and as the big bad for the multiverse saga as a whole. I am looking forward to seeing a lot more of him, not only in the MCU, but outside of the MCU as well. He's in the new Creed 3 movie. Can't wait to see that either. So that's the good stuff. So let's take a step, just one step down to the okay, average, take it or leave it portions of the movie. And I'm sad to say that Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, and Catherine Newton are in that category. And man, it's a shame because they're literally the leads of the film. But honestly, they were just okay. They all had individual moments, to be sure, to shine. And when they were up to bat, they did in fact shine. Paul Rudd, who just has all the charisma just oozing out of every single one of his pores, is probably the best out of the three of them. He had more than a few moments where you saw glimpses of who he's been in the previous Ant-Man movies and Avenger team-ups. Unfortunately, those moments, those glimmers, are very, very fleeting in this movie. There's a lot of them, but they're there and gone just like that. Catherine Newton as Cassie Lang, is again one of the new characters we're introducing to the MCU to take over from the old guard. And honestly, she was just serviceable in the role, but still I can see her growing in her role as stature. Literally. She's going to be at the MCU for a long time to come, and I can see her finding her footing, which is also a little bit of a storyline in this movie. She's just okay. I can't wait to see more of her in the future. Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne. Okay, first let's start with the positive. She's not a wet blanket in this film. Hope, to her credit, has been allowed to grow, evolve, and most of all, relax. And I'm glad to see that. It's a comfortability that we haven't seen in her relationship with Scott up until this film. They finally look like a healthy, normal couple and finally act like one instead of her constantly bringing the nagging mom in energy. So for that, I'm really, really happy. I'm happy to see that evolution in her character. But all of that evolution sadly happened off screen. We don't get to see any of it. What we do get to see is her servicing the story, and that's it. And that's a shame because there's so much more to Hope Van Dyne, and Evangeline Lilly has it in her to bring a depth to the character that's so far unseen. The CGI, at first it was wonky, and I had a moment at the beginning of the film where I thought, uh-oh, is this gonna be how it is for the entire movie? Because right now, these CGI special effects are taking me completely out of it. But then after about 10 minutes, I acclimated to it. I had a moment where I realized, okay, we're looking at Star Wars special effects here, because if we're being completely honest, Star Wars special effects and CGI have never been completely on point. So if you're looking to be transported and completely immersed inside a whole new quantum realm world a la Avatar, The Way of Water, sadly you're going to be really disappointed in this film. But if you're okay with the Star Wars franchise level CGI and special effects, you should be just fine. The supporting players, they were just fine. They were there to support and to move the story along. They completed the assignment, and you know what, I'm fine with it. Not blown away by it, but I'm fine with it. Although I will say, a standout for me was a guy by the name of William Jackson Harper, and he played Quaz in the movie. He was really, really great, and I hope they figure out a way to bring him out of the quantum realm and recruit him into the Avengers, because he was just that good. The actor was just that good, and his skill set, I feel, will be necessary going forward for the Avengers. Speaking of supporting players, where's the rest of Ant-Man's crew? Where's Luis, Dave, and Kurt? Where's his ex-wife Maggie and her husband Paxton? While I understand the whole purpose of this movie was to introduce Kang, part of the major appeal of this franchise has been Scott's ties to his extended family, and they were nowhere to be found in this movie. Now, I realize there's only so much movie you can pack into 2 hours, which is why this particular complaint is in the average, okay, take it or leave it section, but I feel like maybe a lot of the hate for this movie comes from the fact his regular supporting cast has all but disappeared. Now let's get into what I didn't like about this movie. Bill Murray. The less said about Bill Murray and his cameo appearance in this movie, the better. What they were trying to do is create another Jeff Goldblum Grandmaster kind of a character, but man, oh man, did they fail miserably. Let's hope and pray that we never, ever, ever see Bill Murray in this particular role ever again. Michael Douglas. I hate to say it, but Michael Douglas, he was literally just there. He was there to do nothing but service the story. In fact, it's not until the end of the third act that his skills really come into play. He had absolutely nothing to do throughout the majority of this movie. Now, in interviews, he's expressed gratitude for being offered the role of Hank Pym, but he's also gone on record with his hope that if there is an Ant-Man 4, that Hank Pym dies. And frankly, honestly, I'd rather have his character die than have an actor of Michael Douglas's caliber be stuck in a movie with absolutely nothing to do. It's a shame, it's a shame, it's a shame, but I hated him in this role, and not because he did anything wrong, it was just because he was taking up space, and that's it. And Michael Douglas deserves better. The mechanized organism designed only for killing, or MODOK. Now, if we're speaking honestly, I thought it was a really interesting choice to bring MODOK into the MCU by bringing the main villain from the first Ant-Man movie, Darren Cross, back into the fold. Everyone thought he died at the end of the first Ant-Man movie, but apparently he didn't. Instead, he was sucked into the quantum realm and experimented on to create MODOK. Now, why he was experimented on, nobody knows. But anyway, after the experiments were over, MODOK was born. I thought that was a really cool, inspired, and unexpected way to bring a MODOK into the MCU. But somewhere along the way, from concept to execution, it fell completely apart. Now, in the comics, MODOK, although being a second or third tier kind of a villain, is still a villain to take note of. He's super intelligent and has had a hero or two on the ropes a time or two in his 50-plus year history in the comics. But in this movie, his hyper-intelligence is nowhere to be found. He's literally Kang's lapdog, and that's it. And while he's still powerful, that power only comes from the weaponry in his chair. There's no telepathy, no mind control, no more shielding that also comes from his telepathic abilities. All those are gone. And all that he is a very big head on a very small body in a floating chair. He's been turned into a cartoon character, and I think that's sad. Yes, he is silly and ridiculous, and as most Silver Age villains are, but we could turn him into something that isn't quite so silly and ridiculous. Instead, Darren Cross, who in and of himself was a formidable opponent in the first Ant-Man movie, has become this really ridiculous villain who thankfully they kill off in the final act. Okay, so now let's talk quickly about the two end credit scenes, okay? There's two of them. There's a mid-credit scene and a end credit scene. The mid-credit scene is basically all the Kangs and all the universes being summoned together to begin to wage war. Now, why they needed to get rid of Kang the Conqueror in order to begin that process is something that I hope that they explain as time goes on. But regardless, Jonathan got to play 3 different Kangs in this mid-credit scene, as well as, a quick shot of a full stadium full of Kangs. And again, he gives depth and nuance to every Kang he has played so far. Chef's kiss. Now, the end credit scene looks like it takes place in the 20s. And another Kang variant is on stage somewhere making a presentation. And guess who's in the audience? None other than Mobius and Loki, which means this will be a main storyline in the second season of Loki, which is another reason why I say go watch the first season of Loki so that when you see this end credits scene, it'll connect with you more. And that's it. Like I said, for all its flaws, I really enjoyed this movie. It was well worth the time and money spent. Now, and again, to be sure, there was a lot of this movie that was just okay, but that was, in my opinion, way overshadowed by my own personal gratefulness that the Multiverse Saga is finally on the move. So, taking all of the above into consideration, you know what? I'm going to give this movie 3 butter pumps. I liked it. What can I say? I liked it. What can I say except have you seen Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania? If so, what did you think about it? How many butter pumps would you give it? I want to hear all about it in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching, my butter babies. Thank you for subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.